Hello, welcome to this webinar on personalizing healthcare through data integration perspectives from Russia, Serbia and Turkey. I'm Nick Geldermans. I'm affiliated to Leiden University Medical Center and First Moscow State Medical University in Moscow, Russia. My daily work is transforming healthcare systems. In this capacity, I've worked with the Future-Proofing Healthcare Initiative, and this webinar is related to that. And this initiative is mapping different countries on their systems performance, on all kind of indicators. So currently we have about 34 countries we made an inventory on, identifying gaps, and it's also very useful to promote good practices based on this inventory. So the whole initiative is focusing on improving person-centered healthcare. So you can find this on the website, on the Future-Proofing Healthcare Initiative website. It contains also a sustainability index. This is applicable to health systems, but also specific disease areas such as lung cancer and breast cancer. And you can play on the website also with the data. You can see country listing, etc. So it's very useful, and it gives a lot of insights into systems performance and possible improvement. So we now focusing on examples from Russia, Serbia and Turkey, which I think is quite insightful on how you can differently think on data integration and the applicability in healthcare improvement. So we will hear about these case examples on how to integrate real-world data into decision-making and establishing trust in health data sharing. And for this, I have very distinguished guests, which I shall introduce. And we have today Professor Alexei Sergeyevich-Kolbin, and he's the head of the Department of Clinical Oncology, Pharmacology, and Evidence-Based Medicine at the First St. Petersburg State Medical University. He is head of the Regional Center for Drug Safety Monitoring and professor of the Department of Pharmacology at the Medical Faculty of the St. Petersburg State University, a very distinguished colleague from Russia. Secondly, we are very honored to have Maya Kocic. She is president from the Lymphoma Patient Association, LIPA, where she is a patient advocate for more than 13 years. And last but not least, we have our dear colleague, Professor Atil Bushin. He's professor at the Department of Medical Genetics of Cukurova University, and he's a leading expert in medical genetics in Turkey. So a very warm welcome, guests, and we are very much looking forward to hear about your experience in your countries. So I want to hand over first to Alexei and tell us about the Russian experience. The floor is yours, Alexei.
Nick, thank you very much for this great opportunity to speak up today on my topic to explain what's Russian experience in the enabling real-world data, to give an overview of the terms of Russian healthcare system. So currently in the Russian Federation, the terms RWE and RWD are not officially accepted and approved, but we're about to do it. So hopefully right after the new year, these terms, definitions would exist in the legislation in the Russian Federation, because currently these terms already formally were approved in the Eurasian Economic Union. That's why for RWD in Eurasian Economic Union, with a probability of 99%, Russia would use RWD as real-world data that refers to the condition of the patient or about the medical care that would be gained from different sources. And RWE would be evidence, real-world evidence, which is obtained from real-world data. This clinical evidence about the use and potential benefits of drugs or medications based on the basis of collection and analysis of the data of real clinical practice, real-world data. As I said before, by now in the Russian Federation, officially RWD, RWE are not yet proved, but we have very clear indications that they are already being used in Russia, at least specific elements. For example, in the legislation of the Russian Federation, we do have existence of such definitions because they are defined like post-registrational clinical trials and safety post-registrational studies. And definitely we do have registers, but with the registers it's a little bit more difficult because analysis of this data is discussed by the experts and possibly can be used as well. Well, we have multiple gaps. We know that we have multiple tasks for the future legislation, and some of them I would like to share with you today. First, at the moment, in the Russian Federation, there is an excessive current regulation for observational studies without intervention in the process of treatment. There is a lack of clear regulatory connection between the results of such studies and further possibility of taking the results into account when making decisions regarding the provision of drug products and into the reimbursement issues. Second, yes, we have patient registers provided by law, but currently they only focus on the planning of the needs, planning of the requirements, and majority of them are closed systems, and they do not have any focus on the collection and the analysis of the real-world data, but although they can do it. Third, in the Russian Federation, for years we are enjoying the pharmacovigilance system in the form of messages that is taking real-world data. At the same time, pharmacovigilance system in Russia is also a closed system, and there is only expert access to that. Definitely, it puts some limitations for paradigm of RWE and RWD. Fourth, the current legal framework does not exclude the possibility to use real-world data at the development and the revision and update of clinical guidelines. And lastly, there is a legal framework, formal framework for the collection of patient healthcare data, but there is no procedure to process this data. Definitely, currently in the world and in Russia as well, we have very clear roadmap on how RWD, RWE data should be collected. So this data could potentially come from very different sources. And here they are: insurance companies, patient data, clinical studies, social media, laboratory tests, genomic data, medical statistics, mortality, survival, pharmaceutical data, and registers. Then we use the tools of the real-world evidence. We get so-called RWD first and then RWE, and then the results of the real-world evidence let us go back. We can modify clinical trials, endpoints, outcomes, designs, and then use this data in the healthcare system for the changing of the labels, also in the purposes of pharmacovigilance or HTA, healthcare assessment, or reimbursement. Definitely not all RWD could transform into RWE. For that, we need to be guided by the evidence-based concept. Unfortunately, currently, this concept sometimes not easy to use and quite disputable to use. So, main practical directions of using RWE. First, creation of medicinal products, study and registration of drug products, and COVID proved that. Then, to clarify data of safety and efficacy of already registered technologies, including drugs and treatments, and last but not least, this is important, HTA, health technologies assessment, reimbursement, risk sharing, and new models of drug supply. Here on the slides, I'm indicating what has been done so far. So these are stakeholders in Russia who are involved into these activities. So for this time, we managed to design first Russian guidelines to use RWE and RWD. We are publishing a journal, bilingual journal, English-Russian, and I'm inviting all of you to have a publication here. We carried out 2 international conferences, and the results of these conferences also available in open access. And most important here, that on the basis of EAEU, there is a working group that is designing a proposal to change the regulatory framework, both for Russian Federation and for Eurasian Economic Union. So what are the takes away? First, to create a working group with the participation of executive and legislative authorities for the development of legal and regulatory acts regarding the real-world clinical practice research. This project is actively ongoing. Creation and formalization of mechanism how to use RWD in the registration, HTA, implementation of medical decision support systems, clinical guidelines, innovative models, and definitely for innovative drug supply models. And also very important current project, which is also ongoing, focused on ensuring the implementation of pilot projects within the framework of research of real-world clinical practice in order to work out tasks and prepare the system for data collection and analysis by the time when the infrastructure of a single digital circuit is completed in the Russian Federation. So we are very active here in the Russian healthcare. So our task is to create a single digital circuit, and hopefully that would be additional tool for the implementation of RWE and RWD concept, both in the Russian Federation and Eurasian Economic Union. Nick, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak up today.
Thank you very much, Alexei. That was very well structured, very insightful, and also something, especially from the regulatory perspective, something Western countries could learn from. So thank you very much. So this brings us to the second speaker, distinguished Maya, and she will talk about the Serbian case on how big data enable better patient care. So really looking very much forward to your talk, Maya. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today and to talk about such an important topic. As you said, I'm representing Lymphoma Patient Association. This is a national organization dedicated to lymphoma and CLL patients in Serbia. Our aims are to give information to the patients and support them, provide better access to new treatments, clinical trials, but also through our work, we have recognized the increased importance of talking about health data sharing, because health data sharing is a key if we want to improve patients' outcomes. On the other hand, this is a very, very complex area. So last year, we launched a project trying to examine a couple of questions related to health data, not only big data, but health data in general. We called it Share for the Future. This is a multi-stakeholder initiative led by my organization, by LIPA, and our main aim is to raise this wider patient and public awareness about the importance of health data, improve understanding of responsible health data sharing, and establish this trusted environment for dialogue on this issue. We have developed a wide range of different resources to make this possible. Firstly, we developed our website that contains reliable information, and by sharing this information, we are striving to familiarize wider patient communities with the basic concepts of data sharing, data journey, safeguards in place. And of course, we do not just rely on our website we have a strong social media presence on Twitter, Instagram. We are organizing webinars on relevant topics related to health data. We developed some material in both version, printed and digital version, brochure and leaflet about personalized medicine. All materials are developed in Serbian, so I think they could be relevant for patients, and not only in Serbia but from neighboring countries, because they understand our language. And this is where we are now with our project, but we are very ambitious to grow our project.
That's so wonderful, Maya. And I think together with the presentation of LXI, you point towards the importance from a patient perspective in sharing this data and how this could help patients for better self-management, to feel more empowered, to feel connected. So I think that's a very good example on how you do that. So I think also in the words of both of you, also this aspect of trust is quite essential. And that brings us to the third speaker. And Altin will present the Turkish case on how people can be motivated to share the data, in which, of course, is creating this trust is a critical element. So Altin, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you for a nice presentation. I'm so glad to be here to present you what we have in Turkey and what we have experienced. I'm actually in the translational point of from the patient to the clinicians. So today in here, the Future Proofing Healthcare Initiative brought us together to talk about the data sharing issues. However, that would be better to understand the current landscape of personalized healthcare in Turkey before the data sharing issues. Thus, I would like to mention a couple of outcomes from the index itself. Just to remind the index everyone, it detects the scores considering the policies, frameworks, partnerships, people, and drivers in which Turkey ranked 24th among these 34 European countries. Overall, I must say that Turkey is on a good track and will be in a better place in the near future. For instance, Turkey is in an excellent position regarding the use of decision support systems in mobile health technologies, where we have a great initial data gathering project and we call it ENABUS. This project came into life by the Ministry of Health's willingness to conduct data-based decisions, and they defined themselves as data-oriented ministry. However, on the other hand, Turkey scored lowest on equity and social policies, which covers the planning, organization, and delivery of services that will drive this precision healthcare, and we call it personalized healthcare. Thus, most importantly, we need to highlight the root cause of transparency and trust. And just about talk about the challenge rooted is in trust, and that might be due to the specific unfortunate experiences Turkey have had several years ago with data sharing and transfer of their health data without their consent in the past. Such experiences put solid barriers to data sharing and created trust issues among all the society. Moreover, there is a significant shortfall in cross-sector and cross-border collaborations. Currently, we are not acting together, and as I mentioned, there is a lack of communication among all the corporations, industries, public and government bodies. It is needed to include specifically communities and patients that will help generate solutions to the concerns of data use and misuse and especially the privacy. But this is not an issue only in Turkey. According to Imperial College London's survey results, 95% of people were not willing to share their medical data with commercial industries, and the same survey reveals that they weren't willing to share their health data even with their doctors, and almost two-thirds of people in the US wouldn't do so. In addition to all this, just to remind you all that data sharing will require an infrastructure to support and allow for standards that will promote interoperability, transparency, and data security.
Thank you very much, Altin. So I think all three, thank you very much for these insightful presentations and also for your frankness on what are the typical barriers and challenges. And I think this also shows that countries have their commonalities, but also differences, and what we can learn from each other. So this is exactly the purpose of this webinar. So we go now to a plenary discussion. And I will introduce a little bit my questions. So I'm working on different continents in different healthcare systems, trying to transform healthcare, including aspects of data. And you see, really, because of this complexity for governments, for healthcare organizations, this is often very difficult to make real transformation. So this is patient-centered. These patient-centered service aspects are not very easy because you have to connect the different things. There are organizational aspects, like Altin mentioned, with the different players in the system. There might be regulatory challenges, like Alexei was explaining, finances, and this often from a very operational perspective. So how does it work within a clinic, in a service with the patient and their engagement, but also from a systems perspective. So this really shows complexity. So my question to you would be, so in your country, what are the typical key actions needed to improve personalized healthcare? And if you can, from a patient involvement perspective, from technology or finances or whatever you feel comfortable with to answer. Alexa, can you begin, please?
Thank you very much for your question, Nick. You are absolutely right. In Russia, we are doing multiple attempts to implement, to use this paradigm of precision or personalized healthcare. And we have been discussing this phenomenon for quite a time at different sites. We have particular legal acts. We have a concept of personalized healthcare development at the level of the country. I cannot yet boast and say that it's really widely used. Possibly not yet. Yes, there are some achievements, possibly mainly in oncology, and we have a number of very large federal medical centers that are very much advanced in the personalized healthcare in oncology. But speaking about the systemic approach, well, barriers are classical, like for the implementation of any modern innovative philosophy. They're quite common. Same difficulties with resources, and I even would say that possibly not only with resources, but possibly with equipment, laboratory tests, let's say laboratory part of that story. Well, we should not forget about human capital as well, because we need professionals who should be properly trained, educated, with proper skills, capacities for carrying out such studies, and most important, the interpretation of such studies, which are needed for personalized healthcare tests. And there is another barrier, decision makers, because they are looking at these results, and in order to have clear understanding and clear interpretation of these results, what are the advantages of this or that approach in the healthcare system from the fast implementation of personalized-based healthcare at the modern personalized approaches, precision medicine, and we need to explain them that it could be a very good tool for the improvement of providing medical care, correct using of finances in the healthcare, etc., etc. So I think that's the current situation in Russia. So definitely, oncology is the leader in Russia. And in oncology, we have gained positive experience and oncology enlightened those barriers, limitations, resource-based, finance-based, human-based, well, current barriers that are existing for the promotion of the philosophy and paradigm of personalized healthcare. Thank you, Nick.
Yes, very interesting, I think. And again, it points towards that we all have our difficulties with making real-world data work in care. But this is very, I think, also a good example for other countries. So Maya, so from your perspective, so what are the key actions you think now for Serbia in the Serbian context?
Yeah, it seems to me in Serbia currently we have a lot of data. It's a not shortage of data, but unfortunately we are still far away from fully harnessing the potential of data to transform healthcare in Serbia. And many data challenges exist. First of all, challenges related to data quality. We have this poor data quality, inequity. Data doesn't represent the entire population. There is a lack of data that provides patient perspective outcomes. Furthermore, some challenges in drawing insights from data. We have data silos, which preventing the ability from linking data across different data systems. We have this limited interoperability, challenges to embedding data into clinical practice. Data has limited use in guiding patients' care, poor integration of data insights into this clinical decision making. So according to that, patients show this low trust in appropriate use of their healthcare data or privacy protection. Challenges with system, we have no data standard and so on. But if we want to be successful, yes, many changes must be implemented across our healthcare system. There is no doubt. We need to raise the acceptance of the use of digital technologies amongst patients and medical community as well. By using these digital technologies, we should create infrastructure that will help raise awareness, educate patients, general public about the importance of collecting, using, and sharing health data. But furthermore, to my mind, political will is a key if we want to improve PHC in Serbia. In Serbia, there is some progresses. For example, Serbia is ranked 25th for scale-up funding, and it shows its great potential and provides a relatively strong investment environment for new personalized health technologies. Then the government of Serbia has formed a coordination body for healthcare system digitalization. This body working on creating the national program for the development of e-health with an action plan introducing modern technological solutions. And very soon, Serbia will be a home to the Bio4 campus, unique complex dedicated to making Serbia a new regional hub of people, knowledge, and infrastructure in PHC field. It will be linked with our National Institute for AI, which has already existed. So there are progresses, but what is lacking? This is a holistic view. We need an integrated approach to cover these human, financial, and technology aspects to further enhance PHC in Serbia.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think also, and knowing a little bit the Serbian context, there's a lot of things in place, like a unified system for medical data. There are well-equipped people. There are a lot of startups and talents available. The government is quite supportive and with a vision, but you also point out to the importance of the outreach, for example, to the different healthcare providers, to people on the adaptation aspect. So I think also Serbia, well, I think it's well in place to make the next step in personalized healthcare. And also there are things to improve and to make it a reality. And Atil, is the key actions in Turkey for what would be the sort of first most important steps to reach the next level on personalized healthcare?
Actually, Turkey has the best-in-class national infrastructure and supporting systems. However, as the Alexei and Maya has noticed that the integration of the systems is lacking. However, the current ecosystem was built on competition instead of cooperation due to some conservative local data policies, and we have to be collaborative and create solutions together. There is also a low awareness among physicians, and there is no initiative or project addressing the public awareness of data sharing in terms of public education. Thus, the scientific committee is not prioritizing this on their hectic agenda. Society needs solid examples for just this question. What can we achieve if we share our data transparently? So it's really important. We all know that this big data and data analytics is disrupting every industry around the world, but most importantly, that includes all the healthcare industry. But we all know that the healthcare data is still fragmented and managed differently by a large number of stakeholders, like ranging from handwritten prescriptions to unstructured patient records or hospital operations and etc. Thus, the main challenge is to securely collect, store, and structure healthcare data and present insights about all the patients from these different data sources in a way that allows all the healthcare system to move from reactive care to more integrated, personalized, and preventive care system.
Yes, I think this is also very important. And this topic of integration, I think it's with all you three. You sounded through your talk as a quite key aspect. I think also what you mentioned, Atil, was the competition. And for example, this is also very much true if you look to the Netherlands, in which we have a very competition-based healthcare system. And despite we have a wonderful infrastructure for IT and potentially data sharing, it's something like competition and often related to finances, which prevent that organization share data for the benefits of patients. So I think you all three really nicely touch upon the key challenges we see in many countries. And of course, sometimes in a different context, but still. So I think this is where we can also learn and should work on, and maybe also in a more united way. So not only within the EU, but also between the EU and other countries or internationally. So if you allow me, I go to the second question, and that's about transformation. So you see in all disease areas that we are moving away from a traditional one-size-fits-all approach to a more tailored, personalized approach for diagnosis, for treatment, and for example, also for better outcomes monitoring and incentives based on the outcomes. But it is obvious that we need the data, we need the sharing of data in order to make this work. So my questions to you, and also following a little bit the presentation, is how can societies increase their trust in health data sharing? Are there any specific actions that governments, medical professionals, or patient groups can do? Again, Alexa, can you share your thoughts on this?
Thank you very much, Nick. This is a relevant question, but you give me the hot potato. I'm the first one to answer, but I'm ready. Definitely, society, our patients, people, healthcare professionals, and I would like to say that it seems to me that when we give some recommendations, what can or should be done right now, we always look through the prism of experience. Look, they did it there. Let's try to use it to our paradigm. let's try to reproduce or copy-paste. And unfortunately, yet I cannot recollect multiple positive experiences. Well, we are members of International Pharmacovigilance Systems that is working for about 50 years already, 50. We recently celebrated the anniversary. That system was established definitely long ago, 50 years ago, and that was not a perfect model. Well, and it was created just for the small molecules first. At that time, this system was not including biotechnological options of treatment or gene-based treatment. So at that time, there was nothing available like that. So no cell treatment, no CAR T cell treatment. But regardless of that, even at that time, 50 years ago, there were attempts to introduce into the international pharmacovigilance system both HCPs and patients. And so the recent publications, which are actually devoted to the 50-year anniversary of pharmacovigilance system in Russia, they cannot confirm that they really succeeded in involving patients, and they really succeeded in involving HCPs to work actively in pharmacovigilance. Only the registration holders, they are dominating source of information about the reporting, about the adverse events, serious adverse events. How much WHO has tried to involve the patients now that ICH is very actively doing on that, and they established task force last year, and that's let's say attempt already number 2 or number 3 to involve patient community. We know that FDA, biggest American regulator, has been designing a special program to involve patients into pharmacovigilance. I cannot recollect the name of the task force. REPSA, I think REPSA, yes. So about 7 or 8 different programs there, but yet not quite successful. Well, if we follow this way of thinking, to offer something good, something positive, some tool based on positive experience somewhere else, and the first that comes on my mind is pharmacovigilance system, international system. So yet I do not see such tool of active involvement of HCPs and patients into the paradigm of precision and personalized medicine. Unfortunately, I cannot recollect it on the top of my mind. Well, we can say some general words. Well, we should establish local programs to carry out seminars, workshops, actively publish, sort of missionary activities, publish and publish, to speak up, and even our event today, where we are participating, it's also the best practice of missionaries' activities. But how effective these measures is yet difficult to say, but we're hoping for the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexei. I think what you're pointing to, so for medical professionals, it's really important that it should support their work at this data, and creating successes in this. I think, yeah, that's very important. And we also know that sometimes sharing data or using IT system does not always help in the sort of efficiency, and they can be very cumbersome. So I think this is really what we should keep in mind, to support professionals in their work in order to create more adaptation, better adaptation of these approaches. So I'm really also looking to Maya for the patient perspective on how to build trust in this perspective.
Thank you, Nick. In Serbia, patients show various levels of trust in different actors and stakeholders who could be involved in these data sharing initiatives. And according to some results based on a survey that LIPA conducted in 2018, 72% of our patients are willing to share their data with their doctors, healthcare professionals, or general providers, and 51 of the patients are willing to share their data with health and state institutions. So I'm pretty sure in that if we should create this basic supporting framework, if we can be transparent, if we can be honest, if we can prove that we are in it for a long term, if we can work in a spirit of partnership rather than having this, pick up and run approach, I'm pretty sure we can build trust amongst the patient communities. Firstly, we must improve communication between different stakeholders. stakeholders, having this continuous conversation, education by creating public awareness and education campaigns to explain power of health data. Also, we need to have this open dialogue between stakeholders involved in processes around health data and health data sharing. We need to increase transparency because, health data mustn't be some black box for our patients where they have no idea what's going on inside. But probably the most important aspect is to have these legislations and regulations put in place. And we need to develop and implement robust data national standards to ensure secure, ethical, and responsible data sharing. In addition to that, we need to foster cultural changes as well, also technological, infrastructural changes, and so on. So we still have a long way to go, but I think, as Professor Colbin said, we really need to collaborate and co-create with other stakeholders. Patients must be involved because at the end of the day, it's all about patients. It's all about real people. It's all about us. We are all patients in some sense. And this is a key.
Thank you very much, Maya. I think you very clearly explain why it's important to have patient representatives, patient organization involved, because they are key to transform the system. And obviously, there are a lot of stakeholders who are aware of the importance, but still, I think your involvement of patient organizations is really critical for all, also for governments, for industry, for doctors, and because of this knowledge, and that's very rich, very important. So Atil, also for you, what are your views on creating this trust?
Actually, as a clinician, data is the basis of informed decision making that enables patients to receive the best solutions and treatments at the first time. So, to enhance this trust, we need to transport this message to the patients and to let them know that this is crucial for them to receive the best care. Instead of the one size fits all, as you said, approach, patients are now being treated in a more informed and collaborative way. This means decisions are now being made with the patient, not just for the patient, as in the few decades before. We have to let the patients understand this clearly. However, even though the healthcare professionals and clinicians cannot do this alone, all partners within the healthcare ecosystem, including the government, patient organizations, and industry altogether, should be involved to work together to increase the patient's trust. But we should establish a steady trust environment with the principles that respect our privacy, and we can see ourselves as a potential patients, and they should really be convinced about everything that have been done with this precision medicine, and all the data collected are all about for our own sakes.
Thank you, Atil. I think also you show clearly so the importance of medical professionals as well as Alexei. And I do think we should stand up better in order to reach this transformation and use of data and proper use of data. So also I think from all actors in the system, we probably need a more active role. So I'm coming to the third question. And it's related to also some experience I have personally in the Netherlands with realizing integrated care. And so we have also some good practices, examples, which you are proud of. There's also a lot of things still to do. But could I invite you to maybe reflect on a good example in your country? And again, I start with you, Alexei.
Thank you, Nick. Today, the most important positive example I'm happy to share is that we have very active digitalization of healthcare, which is actively ongoing, which is supported at the highest governmental level. And I think it's a very fascinating tool to extend this concept of using real-world data, real-world evidence, the analysis of this data, and IT business now actively entering Russia, and IT companies also interested to be part of that. And that competition that we possibly saw before and which we commented to sort of negative connotation, but if this is a competition in healthcare digitalization, I think in Russia it's a bit opposite. In Russia, it's a positive example, I would say, and I would like to emphasize that. And the second positive example is that active reimbursement, evolutionizing of reimbursement system when state compensates. Because state, on the one hand, is quite formalized, but the criteria is very clear and transparent. And definitely, if we manage to implement in practice RWE and RWD into the system of decision-making and into the system of reimbursement, especially for orphan drugs, because they are quite costly, as we know, that would be a very good example. And keeping fingers crossed, but I think here in Russia, quite positive steps have been made. That means implementation of RWD in one of the criteria of decision-making about the reimbursement of price of drugs, which is done by the state. Thank you.
This is indeed a very important lesson to learn from. Thank you very much, Alexei. So Maya, can I ask you to give an example?
Yeah, for Serbia, I would like to mention our project Share for the Future again. First of all, this is a multi-stakeholder initiative because obviously we cannot do anything alone. We need to collaborate with each other. Our aim is to equip not only patient communities but other stakeholders as well with the information they need to have this positive dialogue with other parties involved in processes around health data sharing. Also, I want to highlight that we just established a PHC Alliance, gathering 4 patient organizations from Serbia with the common mission to publicly advocate for urgent systematic changes, which we truly believe in that will drastically and significantly improve moving the personalized agenda forward. I think this could be highly relevant for other countries. This is where we are now. For in the future, we are planning to try to adapt to requirements, upcoming requirements, because as we all know, health data is a very, very complex area, and processes around health data are changing very, very fast, especially by introducing these new digital ways of storing, exchanging, and analyzing data. We will continue to support our patient and patient organizations, other stakeholders as well, to start this positive dialogue, firstly with their networks on the topic of health data sharing, about benefits, how to address concerns around security, privacy, ways of making health data more accessible and more engaging. Of course, we are planning to create some tools for patient organizations to design these appropriate online courses for all patients. Yes, this is it.
Yeah. Again, I think that's very helpful, and it's very impressive in what you're establishing there in Serbia. So, Atil, can you mention a good example, best practice?
Actually, although Turkey is a front runner in some areas, as for instance in health information systems that I just mentioned before, we have a long-standing track record as one of the first mover countries in the world when it comes to the use of clinical decision support system. Not of course, a full support system, but this mobile health technology is indicating a high penetration of algorithmic care optimization that connects all the governmental hospitals together in one system. And through this platform, we call it Enabus platform, that you can achieve all the biochemical, radiographic, and all the patient's prescriptions together. But this still has some limitations, just like the genomic data. That's because of some local legal issues, according to this one. And that means that there is still room to improve, and certainly things we could do better. As for example, in the policy context, this means we have to set concrete actions to facilitate policies and other drivers for precision healthcare. And these concrete steps could be an improvement of the access to the health databases, not only for the research activities on one hand, but also an increase of civic participation, and that's the limited part on the other hand. And we also need to focus on the healthcare professionals for the right skill set to use all the analytics of the data in this platform. We have the platform, but we still have some limitations for using in a right way and without the limitations of legal issues, including especially more focused on the genomic data. And if it's possible, I would now like to present a slide that shows an example of a good action taken in cancer. We all know about this. President Barack Obama's announced the funding for precision medicine in 2015 to promote the personalized medicine. But there's also on the other side of the world, in Japan, there is an acceleration plan for cancer control. And it was formulated for prevention, treatment, and research and coexistence with cancer and cancer precision medicine using next generation sequencing platforms that was designed as a key treatment and research area. And we know that they have first identified the hurdles, lack of understanding, uncertainty, budget impact, cost of concerns, affordability, and almost everything. And to consolidate all this approach of Japanese precision oncology, the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare has designated approximately 230 hospitals all over the country for cancer genomic medicine and stratifies them into three layers: designated core hospitals, and cooperative hospitals. Each hospital reimbursed for administering comprehensive genomic profiling testing to each patient only when the test results are provided to the patient after being annotated by a molecular tumor board at each designated core hospital or designated hospital. And these molecular tumor boards consist of multidisciplinary specialists such as medical geneticists, pathologists, medical oncologists, genetic counselors, and genome researchers. Thus, I will say it again, we should gather up the healthcare data from different sources and drive these valuable insights for evidence-based decision-making in all healthcare systems.
Thank you so much, Atil. That was a very comprehensive example. So I'm quickly looking to the questions from the audience dripping in. So let me see. A question for Alexei, and this is, so you mentioned the Eurasian Union and the activities. So could you elaborate a little bit more on this initiative?
1.5 years ago, as you know, what European Economic Union is, I hope everybody knows. Well, this is economic union, which unites several countries. And with European Union, we do have a direction that is dealing with drug monitoring, and there is continuously working task force, commission. And about 1.5 years ago, we came to the Commission with the initiative that we wanted to launch the concept of RWE, RWD in the framework of European Economic Union, Eurasian Economic Union, and we provided a particular plan. The plan was to carry out 3 analytical studies that all of them were focused on comparing practices of implementing RWE, RWD on the side of FDA and on the side of EMA, European Medical Agency, and to see whether the legislation could be compatible or matching or mismatching. Also, we had a special questionnaire, and we used it and asked all countries, participants of the Eurasian Economic Union, and their ministries responded whether they have any elements of the concept of RWE, RWD. Then we offered to formulate specific definitions, to unify them, and we analyzed decisions that were made, acts and enactments, legal documents in pharmacovigilance, in the registration of the drugs, and we introduced particular changes into this act. Well, all that was approved and amendments were done. And by the end of this project of 1.5 years, so quite hard work, it was offered to our working group to establish the concept for Eurasian Economic Union. And we're doing it right now, and we would be happy to share our first results as soon as we get it. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Alexei. And I see another question for Maya. So Maya, you give information on the Share for the Future initiative. So what are the next steps?
Yeah, actually, as I said, we established as a meaningful follow-up of our initiative this PHC Alliance. PHC Alliance is gathering 4 patient organizations from Serbia, and actually we have joined forces to encourage our patients through knowledge, capacity building, education, to be more engaged by illustrating the value and potential of health data sharing, and of course building trust amongst patients, not only from these organizations, but patients in Serbia in general.
Thank you so much. And for the sake of time, I think we have to move to the end of this webinar. And of course, everybody reach out if you have more questions so we can answer them after the webinar. So I want to come to your final remarks for this webinar. To start with Atsio, so what is your key takeaway message for this webinar?
I think we have to be transparent and better inform our societies about health data sharing and demonstrate that we as a society are able to handle health data responsibly through an effective data privacy framework. Over time, this will increase the level of trust in the population towards all kinds of data sharing. And in terms of actionability, especially in cancer or even the rare diseases, we believe this will result in improved patient outcomes and a happier, fairer, and more prosperous society.
Wonderful. Alexei, what's your takeaway message?
I think this site and this type of event is a very important step for the missionary activities for promotion of the personalized healthcare, promotion of real-world data, real-world evidence. And I'm calling all countries with similar or maybe not quite similar economic type of development, similar healthcare system to be united and maybe to create common documents, acts, concepts in the RWE and RWD to work together. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I want to leave the last word from you, Maya. So what is your takeaway message?
From patients' point of view, there are a lot of benefits for the patients through health data sharing. First, we must empower patients by engaging with them to discuss how data are being used and continuously adapting these legislations and tools to give them access to their data and appropriate control over their data, so they will be able to be a more comprehensive partner in determining their care. Furthermore, we need to demonstrate that making more and more useful data and using them more efficiently is vital in accelerating research, innovations, and improving our ability to draw insights from data, which offers the potential to improve efficiency at every stage of the care pathway, which finally can lead to what is the common goal of all of us, the more personalized care for every patient, not only in Serbia, but all around the globe.
These are wonderful words. Thank you so much. And thank you all three for your very insightful information on these complex matters. But you can show that we are progressing. It is possible to make steps and improvements. We're still not there, but we have to work together in order to make it a reality. And you can also see the opportunity to do this together in this approach. And that's very helpful. So great thanks and great gratitude from the audience as well. So please, audience, also reach out after this webinar. You saw that in this webinar had this complexity of change, and that data or technology alone is not sufficient to make healthcare better. So it's a combination of technology, of data, patient involvement, professional involvement, but also regulatory and legal aspects, finances. So I think what we learn is that the trust from citizens and how to create it was wonderfully explained by Maya is a key element. Of course, we need the technology, solid infrastructure, and they have to build in countries. And this sort of policy approach. What I do think is the future-proofing healthcare website and the information which is available helps to understand about the sort of ingredients needed and how do currently systems perform and how we can improve. So you can find best practices, you can see interviews, you can find also our speakers of today. I also want to refer to the initiative mentioned from in Russia, in Serbia, as well as in Turkey. So I hope you enjoyed this webinar and hope to see you soon again. Thank you very much.